Howdy, welcome to the lesson on percentage increase and decrease. What do you think is a percentage increase or decrease? So you can pause and just write what you think a percentage increase or decrease is. And then I'll pause it. It's whatever you think it is. So some people think it's when you increase or decrease an amount by a certain percentage. So feel free to write that if you want. If you're at a loss, it's when you increase or decrease an amount by a certain value. By a certain percentage, what am I saying? So increase or decrease an amount by a certain percentage. So it's when you increase or decrease an amount by a certain percentage. Pretty obvious. So how do we do that? Percentage increase and decrease problems require you to work out a decimal multiplier. Sometimes I call that a DM, decimal multiplier. For percentage increase problems, you work out the decimal multiplier in this way. So our decimal multiplier equals 100 plus whatever the increase is. So if it's a 20% increase, you do 100 plus 20. If it's a 3% increase, you do 100 plus 3, and then over 100. And then when you do 100 plus 3 over 100, it simplifies to a decimal. So for example, for a 23% increase, the decimal multiplier would be DM equals, so it's a 23% increase, so it's 100 plus 23 over 100. So 100 plus 23 takes into account the 23% increase, and to make it into a decimal is why we divide by 100. So the decimal part is why we divide by 100, and the increase is why we have plus 23 there. So 100 plus 23 is 123 over 100. Dividing by 100 is kind of like moving the decimal 2 spaces to the left. So we get 1.23 as our decimal multiplier. What if instead it was a decrease? So notice the top one was an increase. What if it was a decrease? Notice that it's still DM. Decimal multiplier equals 100 minus the percentage decrease, because we're decreasing. So that's why it's a decrease. And to turn into a decimal, it's a decimal. It's a decimal. So that's why we have divide by 100 on the bottom. So for a 23% decrease, what would it be? 23% decrease, oh dear. The decimal multiplier equals the decrease, so it's minus. So what's 100 minus 23? 100 minus 20 is 80, and another 3 takes it down to 77. 77 divided by 100, we go da-da, da-da. So 0.77 is our decimal multiplier. Now, why do we bother to find these? And it's so that we can find out the new value. But to begin with, let's work out our decimal multipliers. An increase, it's an increase of 45%. So our DM equals, it's an increase, so 100 plus 45. To turn it into a decimal, divide by 100. Equals 145 over 100, which simplifies to 1.45. That's our decimal multiplier. A decrease of 90%. So our decimal multiplier equals, it's a decrease this time, so don't add. So we should do 100 minus 19 over 100. 100 minus 19 is like 100 minus 20, and then add 1. So 81 over 100, which equals 0.81. So notice for a decrease, it's like 0 point something. For an increase, it's like maybe 1 point something. A decrease of 25%. Really look carefully, like even underline what it says, decrease, because people tend to get these mixed up on tests between increase and decrease. Decrease means going down. So 100 minus 2.5 over 100. 100 minus 2 is 98, minus another 0.5 gives us 97.5. 97.5 over 100. So dividing by 100 gives us 0.975, which makes sense because it's a decrease, so it should be 0 point something. Next one is an increase. It's an increase, so instead of subtracting in our decimal multiplier, we need to add equals 177.4 equals, bring it this way, 1.774. Now we get to see why do we even bother to find these, and so it's so that we can work out the new value using these decimal multipliers. Once you've worked out the decimal multiplier, you work out the new amount. Sorry, move this out of the way. You work out the new amount by multiplying the decimal multiplier by the original amount. So work out the new amount for the following and round your answers to 2 decimal places. So if 150 kilograms is decreased, so it shouldn't be decreased of, 150 the grammar is not quite right, is decreased by 13%. So make this one decreased by, oh dear, I can't even see the percent anymore. Fix it up later. So first step, work out your decimal multiplier. And is it an increase or a decrease? Right, it's a decrease. So 100 minus the percent, not that, but by the percent. 13 over 100 equals 100, no it doesn't, equal 100. Equals 87 over 100 equals 0.87. It's our little decimal multiplier. So now get the new value. New value is the old value times the decimal multiplier times the DM. Right, I tend to write the old value first. So write the old value first. The old value was 150. And the decimal multiplier is 0.87. So it makes sense. If you're decreasing something by 13%, it should get smaller. So plug this in the calculator now. 150 times 0.87. Not necessarily going to be expecting you to do these without calc, of course. Did you get 130? It's kilograms, and we want 2 decimal places. Round any answers to 2 dp. I got 130.5, which is already, you could write 0.50 if you want, but 130.5 is also okay, because it said round any answers if you need to round, but 130.5 is an exact answer. So 130.50 kilograms if you want to do 2 dp. Makes sense because 150 going to 130.5, it has decreased. So it's always good to double check. Did it decrease or did you by accident do an increase? The next one, $140 is increased by 7%. So let's work out our DM for an increase. It's 100 plus the percent, so not plus the 140, but plus the percent, equals 107 over 100. So the decimal is 1.07. And then the new value equals, I like to write the old value first, 140, times the decimal multiplier, 1.07. That's going to give us an amount, which is money. It's not a percentage of answer, it's money. So 140 times 1.07. Plug it in a calculator, and it's rounded to 2 dp. What do you get? Hopefully you get the same as me. I got $149.80. Let's see, does it make sense? It should increase. Yes, it did increase. It went from 140 to 149. Next one, 8,000 is decreased by, hopefully I've changed yours so that it says by, 3.1%. So decimal multiplier for a decrease equals 100 minus 3.1 over 100 equals 100 minus 3 is 97, so minus a 0.1 will give you 96.9 over 100, which equals 0.969. And now let's work out our new value. Equals the old value, which is 8,000. There's no units for this one. Times the decimal multiplier, 0.969. Let's plug that in the calculator now. So grab out your calculators. 8,000 times 0.969, 7752. That's an exact answer, so let's just write it as an exact answer. When I say round to 2 decimal places, I mean if you need to round, then round it to 2 decimal places. But this one's an exact answer, so we didn't need to round it. Brilliant. Okay, thanks very much for listening, and that's the end of that lesson on percentage increase and decrease. So you find the decimal multiplier, and then you multiply the old value by the decimal multiplier to get the new value.